The United States is about to attack Iran. Let's see how that attack is going to play out. Okay, this right here we have, let's say we have Iran right here, and you have Saudi here, and you have Iraq. Somewhere here you have Syria. Right here you have Turkey. Right around this spot you have Israel, Turkey, Syria. You have Iraq. This is Saudi Arabia. Somewhere here. Okay. You have Bahrain here. You have UAE. You have Qatar right at this spot. You have somewhere right here Oman. Okay. Now this is Iran. Pakistan is somewhere right here. Pakistan, Azerbaijan, and a host of other countries. The US have its military fortresses around this border, just on the western side of Iran. This is the western side of Iran, and you have its capital around here, Tehran. So, all around these places, the US have bases. Right here, there's a base in Iraq, there's a base in Syria, there's a joint base of the United States in joint operation with the Turkey. You have a base in Saudi Arabia. You have more than a base here in Iraq. You have the 5th Naval Fleet in Bahrain. You have a base, an air base here in Qatar. The biggest base right here, Al Hudaid Air Base, the biggest in the Middle East. Now you have another base in the UAE. There are about 6 air bases right on this spot. Iran have been smart, knowing how surrounded they were. So they were smart enough to develop technologies that would pose a serious threat to the US bases to make them really uncomfortable around here. Because in any war, the first thing that may happen is to overwhelm Iran from all this spot to completely, perhaps, take over the west of Iran. And from here, advances will be made into Iran and they will take control over Iran. But Iran, rather than deciding to pursue a conventional military strategy to push or to prevent such an attack upon Iran, Iran developed missile technology. And there are a huge advantage. Of course, while there are advantages with having all the military bases of the USA around here for a quick and easy mobilization and to attack Iran, it portends a huge cost for the United States. But for the smart technology of Iran, they can do that, push or keep the United States away with much less cost. That is where the asymmetric warfare comes in. Now, in an attack, if the US is to carry out an attack on Iran, how would it do that? Of course, these are going to be the forward operating bases, right? Good. It needs all its aircrafts around here. A ground invasion upon Iran can only happen after successfully degrading the defense capabilities of Iran. So, let's leave ground invasion into Iran for now. That may come probably much long after. To do that, the US Air Force is really going to be busy. And of course, the Fifth Fleet as well. And the Fifth Fleet will be responsible in dealing a great blow to the Iranian Navy. Not only that, it has a support activity and an important equipment that it needs is the aircraft carrier. The aircraft carrier serves a very important purpose here. It may be lodged somewhere far in the Arabian Sea to prevent being targeted by the Iranian missiles. So it has a very important role to recover. It serves as a receptacle for all the US aircraft operating around this region. And it also helped move the US assets strategically in places where it may be difficult for any enemy or adversary to defend against. Now, what Iran will do, what the US will do in attacking Iran, Iran has series of air defenses. And these air defenses will pose a serious threat to the US attack. That means whatever aircraft are moving into Iran may be spotted and targeted with a possibility to be knocked down. With a possibility to be knocked down. So the USA needs to overcome this challenge. And to do that, they'll begin with what we call suppression of enemy air defenses, in what we call SAID. Suppression of enemy air defenses. The US will begin that through cyber attack or cyber warfare. It will begin that with the cyber warfare. So that would mean to try to confuse the radar or the radar system, or to jam them and make them unable to detect the US aircraft. Right at this spot over here in the UAE, the US it's the base for the F-22 stealth fighters. So they would serve a very important role in this mission. Other F-35 would have to be flown in and maybe hosted right here in Qatar, Al Udeid. So, of course, the Israelis aircraft would have to fly in. They'll use the US control airspace in Iraq, to go through Syria. Syria is very porous. Iraq, and they'll meet the US operation on this spot. But there's another important tool that would make this whole mission flow. They need the air refueling tankers, because for the number of hours these aircraft are going to stay in air, you need an air refueling tanker to continue to replenish the fuel to keep these aircraft in combat. Good. Now, Iran have lots of mountains, and beneath these mountains are as storage facilities for their weapons, and they serve as well strategic location for radar systems as well as launchers for their missiles. So the US they will begin striking Iran by first a huge number of F-35 would begin launching missiles, finding all the radar spots and detecting the launches or the launchers within Iran using stand-up missiles. That is, they're going to stand right outside Iran's airspace and they will launch strikes from outside it to any missile launchers within Iran. So when they are comfortable, much comfortable, that they've succeeded in degrading the Iranian air defenses, then the F-15, F-16 will be more comfortable in maneuvering the ways into Iran and taking out more sensitive spot within Iran. And before, yes, before thinking about taking out a regime change. So it's not really going to be a cakewalk for whatever military that's going to go into Iran to want to go take out any regime in court, any regime or government or authority in Iran. That's pretty much going to be very, very difficult, unlike what happened in Venezuela. So the US are going to face a buzzsaw of sophisticated, advanced air defenses. And it will take them a huge task to knock all those out. Remember in the 12-Day War, the Israelis began the war by decapitation strike. And what you really need to understand about the 12-Day War and that decapitation strike, it was not exactly the Israeli gaining control over the Iranian airspace. No, a lot of those operations happened from within Iran. It were saboteur activities. You have Mossad agents, a lot of them having cells within Iran, and they use those cells to produce drone, couple all the drones they needed. A lot of FPV drones were used to convey bombs, and there are high chances that these FPV drones were used in the assassination of the Iranian generals and scientists within Iran. So it was more of an inside operation than it was actually a thing that happened from outside it. And most of the time, Israelis used stand-up missiles. They never really gained actual control of the Iranian airspace. They mostly launch from outside it. And during the 12-Day War, as it progresses, when Iran was finally detecting where the threats was really coming from and going in, identifying this Mossad cell and picking them up, what happened was contact from within began reducing in Iran. So the US the Israelis decided to start using drones to go in to Iran to get information for the operation. Now, a lot of those drones were brought down initially. So Israel never really gained full control in Iran airspace. So now what will be the Iran response in an attack with Israel, with the United States and of course Israelis? Good. Iran, knowing the threat it is in, would and its weaknesses, it will try to first prevent the cyber warfare on it and try to counter this suppression of its air defenses. that would mean it would need, of course, which is hard now after having learnt a lot of lessons from the 12-day war. It has more dynamic radar rather than massive sitting radars at a spot that can easily be targeted. There are more dynamic radars right now that are being moved around by trucks to give air launchers the signals they need when launching. So when they move in the launchers with the radar, they launch the strike to the spot, they move back, they go back into hiding. So it makes it difficult to target these kinds of radars. Now, in a hot war between Iran and the USA and Israel, the first thing Iran wants to do is to concentrate on these bases because they're going to be a point of uh, really operation for the USA. So the Iran is going to launch massive, massive missiles on Israel and the United States, on all the bases in the Middle East. Right here in Qatar, Al Hudaydah base, it was struck the other time during the 12-day war after Operation Midnight Hammer. So they have all ranges of missile. Ballistic short-range missiles will be used right here on this base, strike out all the US communication system, their satellite systems and dishes. So they'll cut off these bases from CENTCOM. That's the US Central Command. Now, it makes these bases unoperable. So it put them out of service. The same happens to every single bases around the spot. Now, an interesting thing about Iran is they have the missiles that have completely covered the entire Middle East. So the missile ranges can hit any spot within the Middle East. So nowhere is safe within the Middle East. That means they can hit every single base, US bases, right here. So it will be really difficult for the US operating freely around this port. A very smart way, a very smart defense strategy that the Iranians have really developed over the years. Well, be sure to like, subscribe, and share as we'll be seeing how the 12-day war really happened and what was not shown to you in the media. See you next time.